When we start conversations, this is where we talk about the reverse pitching. So I'll give you a high level overview, and this is the example I like to use. Let's say we are selling diabetes medication, right? Now, the bad way to do it is getting straight to the pitch. I sell this medication. This is what it's for. That's what a lot of people do on LinkedIn, and it doesn't work. The right way and the reverse pitching way is talking about the symptoms because not many people know that they have the problem. They don't know they have diabetes. So we kind of want to start with the symptoms, something that we see in their world specifically. We label the problem. Then we educate them on what happens if they don't solve the problem today. So what happens if you don't take medication? Why we do this is we want to drive urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And then now they're excited. Okay, now they're going, okay, I need to fix this. Then you pitch your solution. Then you talk about the medication.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host Rexhen, and today's guest is Carolina Aurelio, your GTM gal and founder of EC Peasy, where she helps SaaS and B2B services teams book more meetings and move deals faster. Carolina's buyer-first reverse pitching and multi-channel execution, from LinkedIn content to DMs, email, and voice, have sourced 11.5 million plus in pipeline without pitch slaps or spam. A psychology and communication nerd turned quota-carrying seller, she now blends demand gen, copy, and outbound to make prospects say yes before the first call. And it's a pleasure for me to have her on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Carolina.
Pleasure to be here, Regin. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure for me to have you on. I wanted to learn more about your coaching, your business coaching. Go from the start, actually. Initially, what inspired you to start EC Peasy Communication and become a coach and have this as a coaching business?
Yeah, wow. So I come from sales and marketing. I've been in SaaS, specifically an account executive, for the last 5-6 years in tech. So I worked with enterprise companies like Salesforce. I also worked with smaller companies like Path Factory and Connexium. These were startups here in Canada. One, I've always had that entrepreneurial mindset. As a salesperson, you're giving quota and you have to go out there and close deals. So I've always enjoyed that. I've always been a hunter. And then it came to a point, I think this was in 2023. Tech SaaS was just so volatile. There were so many things going on, layoffs. And I thought to myself, I felt very comfortable in hunting, in finding deals. And I thought, hey, let me just go out and start a company, do this on my own. I had spoken with a lot of startups before that. And what I realized where the gap was is a lot of these startups have great ideas, but they don't have the sales acumen or the strategies on how to go to market. And given that I worked in Salesforce and all these companies, I had that. So I felt there was a lot of synergies that we could explore. And that's when I decided to venture out on my own.
And it's been like a year and actually getting closer to 2 years now, right?
So it's 2 years in February, March next year.
Yeah, cool. And so when working with your clients right now, how can we specify, for the ones that are listening that might fit that profile, how can we describe the ideal client profile? Is there a certain specific industry, demographic, psychographic, or maybe some common goals that they're having or other commonalities?
Yeah, so just going very broad, as you said, so I work with SaaS and service space, specifically in the B2B space. Now, in terms of the industry, I am finding that a lot of cybersecurity software development companies need the services. And why I find that is their product is very technical, so they don't know how to translate those technical benefits and features into a story. So I find a lot of people within that space need my help. Now, when it comes to, you mentioned psychographics and just the other type of data, I find we work best after, let's say, the client has hit 1 million or after they've acquired customers because they have some sort of idea on who their ideal customer profile is. Now, don't get me wrong, I do work with them on refining that, but it's nice to have that base already because we're not starting from scratch. So I would say 1 million and above, that's where, clients are ready to take on my services, be it, hey, I need campaigns and I need to drive more awareness to new products, or I need to drive more demand as well. So that's where I find they're needing my services. So I also work with investors. Why being is a lot of these investors are working with SMB companies, startups, and they need these companies to hit a certain goal by the end of the year. For example, 5 million ARR. So then I partner with them in order to get that company to that goal through as I said, the demand generation, the content creation, and the revenue campaign. So the email and LinkedIn DMs.
So 1 million and above
Yeah.
is usually the sweet spot and is mostly companies within the United States too that you work
Yeah.
with. Because cybersecurity is kind of like such an interesting industry, and you're the first coach that I've talked to about cybersecurity.
Okay.
So I found that interesting. One thing about how you work with these clients, what is the engagement like? So we were talking earlier actually about this too, but we can cover this in detail when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to how you work with them, what the programs are, and yeah, what is it like for these clients to work with you?
Yeah, definitely. And I just wanted to mention here, so I mentioned cybersecurity, but there's also my background is in marketing tech and fintech. So I am speaking with a lot of marketing tech companies and companies that offer services like sales coaching as well, which kind of overlaps with what I do because I offer some sort of sales services to some capacity. But I found those work amazing. Now, to answer your question, what does working with Easy Peasy myself look like? Is we believe, first of all, cold outbound isn't, and I hear this a lot, outbound is dead. It is not dead. And I can tell you this as an account executive that's had to cold call enterprise company CEOs. Cold calling is not dead. You just have to do it strategically. So, what we believe in when it comes to working with me is one, we want to drive demand, especially nowadays where other channels are saturated. So we want to drive demand by creating content. So what I'm doing with these founders and even the founders that have sales reps is I'm helping them and I'm coaching them on how to create content on LinkedIn. Now, why LinkedIn is there's 1 billion users on LinkedIn. It's the best B2B platform out there. It's still very new. So if you're posting content and not just any content, because this is the issue that I see is people reposting company content. If you're posting educational content, your decision makers are going to see that. If you send a connection request, you're commenting, your decision makers for your ICP company are going to see that. And they are going to start to familiarize themselves with your company. So I don't know if you've heard this before, but it takes about 9 touch points for someone to buy into your idea. Are you familiar with that?
I've
Yeah.
I've heard about 7. 9 seems to be
7.
maybe the new one.
And actually for cybersecurity, it's 11, which is crazy. So 11. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. So we want to, okay, so how are we going to get to those touch points? So we talk about driving demand. Why creating content is important because let's say if you create a post and your decision maker sees that, that's one touch point. They already understand what you're doing, the problem that you're solving. So that's one aspect, creating content. And it's either I coach them on it or I create content on behalf of them. And this is mostly for founders because they have a lot on their plates. So, that's where I basically manage their LinkedIn for them. The second piece, aside from creating demand, is starting conversations. So the way that I like to think about it is content builds trust, it creates demand, but emails and the cold calling start conversations. So you want to do both in tandem. Now, how do we start conversations? Let's say I'm just working with a founder, they don't have their sales rep yet. What I do with them is I build multi-channel campaigns. So this is with email and LinkedIn to target their ideal customer profile. What I see a lot when it comes to these campaigns is a lot of pitch focused content. So that's why you guys might see on my profile talk about reverse pitching. This is all about talking about their problems and leaving your pitch at the end. So when it comes to building out my campaigns, they're usually 5 to 7 touch points. Obviously, I space them out. I get a better understanding on their technographic, their psychographics. This is very important, their intent data. So we now have tools that allow us to see who are the people that are engaging with our content, who are the people that are registering for events, for our competitors' events. That's intent data because it allows us to see that they are in the market, they're buying, and they're more likely to respond to our messages. So I get a better understanding on that list, and then I create those campaigns that I talk about to start conversations. So just to sum up, creating demands with content and then starting conversations with campaigns.
Interesting. And I wanna dive a little bit deeper into the strategy that goes behind the content and starting these conversations too. So when we think about the content, is it purely kind of like content? Because when thinking about like a company like a cybersecurity company, you're trying to reach this very specific executive potentially that would have the company hire the smaller company, the cybersecurity company. Let's assume that case. So the content that you're doing, is it all based on like how your services help? It's kind of like, so I'm thinking like there's 3 levels of how I think marketing. We have the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel.
Yeah,
So how we help would be kind of like on the bottom, but it's like people kind of like know that you have a service and need your service.
exactly.
And like that
Yeah.
content is directly for the people who want to buy now. But how is the content strategy that you are focused on? I believe it's probably on all levels, but how
Yeah.
would you specify that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it is on all levels because we don't want to focus just on the sales content because it's too promotional, but we also want to educate. Now with content, it's a little tricky that it's not tricky. It's different than emails in the sense you want to cater to your audience, but you also kind of want to cater to the algorithm because the algorithm it's what's gonna push your post, right? So you want to have both in mind, right? And this is why I tell you this. When it comes to creating content, I get a better understanding on what the algorithm is pushing when it comes to hooks. It's very important to kind of reverse engineer what are the hooks and what are the types of contents that are working, which is either carousels, infographics. I would say those are the top two. And then when it comes to the content itself, I like to research what are the top questions that people in the cybersecurity space are asking. What are the trends that are happening? When it comes to the breakdown, I like to use the 70-15-15 rule. So what that means is 70% of the content is how to or how I content. So it doesn't even have to be related to the business specifically. For example, in my space, I'm in the lead generation brand awareness space. I can even talk about how I generated 5 leads in 5 days, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can even something more top of the funnel would be, let's see, cybersecurity. What are the trends? Or we have with the 23andMe, which happened a few weeks ago, talking a little bit more around that. So that's 70% of the content. The other 15% is personal. What I mean by personal is talking about your values, your lessons, your mission, because you have to remember this is still your personal brand, so you want to humanize it. People buy
Mm-hmm.
from people. So yes, you want to be educational, but you also want to be human, right? Talk a little bit about behind the scenes. And the other 15%, it's as you talked about, the bottom of the funnel. So the case studies. This is how we helped Connexium do XYZ in three months. So
Mm-hmm.
that's very important because that type of content I find drives conversions. I've gotten many inbound leads from that type of content, but I have to mix it with the top of the funnel, which is the educational.
Yeah, because you got to bring in awareness first.
Yeah.
to your brand, and then you get to that bottom of the funnel. Yeah. So when it comes to the message, or to actually making the connections and talking with people either through email or LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
what is kind of like the high level strategy there? Are you approaching with some sort of value question? What is the approach there?
Yeah. So this is where when we start conversations, this is where we talk about the reverse pitching. So I'll give you a high level overview, and this is the example I like to use. Let's say we are selling diabetes medication, right? Now, the bad way to do it is getting straight to the pitch. I sell this medication. This is what it's for. That's what a lot of people do on LinkedIn, and it doesn't work. The right way and the reverse pitching way is talking about the symptoms, because not many people know that they have the problem. They don't know they have diabetes. So you want to kind of see something, pick out something that you see in their world, and then label it as the problem. If we're talking about diabetes, hey, do you get thirsty often, for example? Well, we find 35% of people also do, and this is due to diabetes. So we kind of want to start with the symptoms, something that we see in their world specifically. We label the problem, then we educate them on what happens if they don't solve the problem today. So what happens if you don't take medication? Why we do this is we want to drive urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And then now they're excited. Okay, now they're going, okay, I need to fix this. Then you pitch your solution. Then you talk about the medication. So going back to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has worked so well for me. I would say other more than email, more than cold calling, is I like to search what's going on their website. You know, for example, I sell LinkedIn services. So I like to see, what are they posting? Are they getting a lot of engagement? What are they trying to do? So once I see that, I reach out and I mention the specific post, right? And then I mention how it can be better. Well, obviously, you know, there's a way to do this without being aggressive and being rude as well. So you want to be very cautious on that. And then I talk lightly on what I do, but I always start with what I see in their world.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing that, Carolina. And I wanted to ask you about your own marketing at this point. So when you find people, I believe that you like, what marketing channel, as a coach, what marketing channel is working really well for you right now?
So when I started, I was doing LinkedIn content, DMs, emailing, and cold calling. That's because I still had to build up my audience. As of today, I'm not doing cold calls. I'm not really emailing. I would say most of my leads are inbound. So I would say, to answer your question, LinkedIn is the best channel that's working for me. And why is that? Not just the content, but also I've optimized my profile. So what I'm finding is I'm sending connection requests with notes. Let's say I send 10, and out of those 10, I get one person going back to my profile, kind of reading what I'm doing, going to my website, and then they reach out to me and say, hey, I want to book time with you. So you want to put out great content, but you also want to optimize your profile to get people to go on to the next journey. For me, the next stepping stone in the journey is the website, because I want them to see my website. I want them to see the case studies, get educated there, and then they reach out to me. So LinkedIn is working really great. Now, for the solopreneurs or the founders, coaches out there that are starting out, I would say start creating content, because you see the results 3 to 6 months after. And in the meantime, while you're building that credibility, do the outreach. So do the DMs and the warm calls.
Mm-hmm.
And that works well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing that, Carolina. And I wanted to go back just a little bit when we were talking about your ideal client profile and kind of like how you help them. I think what we didn't cover was also the part of like the packages that you typically offer.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the packages, let's say the done for you. So done for you, I offer the LinkedIn package, which is 3 posts per week. I offer visuals. So what I mean by visuals is carousels, infographics, and that works great because you get more reach with it. So that's the LinkedIn offer. And then when it comes to the email package or the campaign package, I offer email and LinkedIn campaigns. So I send out 3 campaigns per month at minimum, if not more. Now, what I do with that service is it's a end-to-end service. So we're building out the list, as I said, based on behavioral data and intent data. We're creating the messages and we're executing. So actually sending out those emails. And of course, when it comes to sending out emails and DMs, we make sure that it gets to your ideal customer profile. So we're checking for DKM, for DMARC. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's just making sure that the email actually lands in the inbox and not the spam. And we're making sure that we are within limits when it comes to LinkedIn outreach. Now, for those people that have reps in their team, we also coach them on how to cold call. But let's say you don't have a rep and you're just on your own and you also want to do cold call. What we do is we have partnerships with AI agents. So they are able to actually warm call or cold call on behalf of you. I know some people are hesitant with that, and that's a whole different conversation. But as a starter package, I would say email and LinkedIn campaigns, 3 campaigns per month at minimum. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that, Carolina. And so right now, with going back to your business, with your coaching business, looking to the future for the next 1 to 3 years, do you have any specific business goals that you are working towards of?
I do. I have a lot of goals. Okay, so one is, so as I said, I offer the done for you and the done with you. It's great because it gives me that. I love speaking and working with people, but I also find that it restricts me when it comes to scalability if you're offering services only. So something I'm working on is courses. I'm hoping in the next 6 to 12 months, I'll have some courses out. And that way I am able to reach more people with my services. And if they want that one-on-one experience, then of course they can work with me. And something else that I'm working on is expanding my personal brand beyond LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, as I said, works very well, but I also, because I'm putting out courses, I want to build my brand on other platforms like Instagram and YouTube. Actually, I started with Instagram, but that's something I'm working towards more.
Cool. Yeah. And right now, where do you see the challenge in like thinking about your goals? What are some challenges that you're facing up right now? Where do you see the bottleneck for yourself?
The bottleneck, I would say right now it's time because I want to build out my courses, but I'm also servicing obviously my clientele. So something that I'm working to break that is I'm looking to hire a social media intern. I'm also looking to hire a marketing person to help me with the workload, and that way I have more capacity to work on the courses. Something I'm finding, a challenge, and I'm not sure, whether you've spoken with other coaches and founders that are running into this, but with startups, which by the way, I love working with startups and SMBs, but they're restricted when it comes to financial resources, right? So I do want to, I want to help them, but I also, at the end of the day, I have a business to run. So it's kind of refining my ideal customer profile. I do have, I'm looking into equity with these companies, but I'm also kind of pivoting now to working with SMB mid-market companies. I wouldn't say mid-market, but just bigger SMB companies.
And right now, throughout your experience, and I feel like this is going to be helpful for other coaches who are listening too.
Yeah.
Throughout your experience so far of running your coaching business and your business, what have been some investments you've done that you feel like either business investments that you've done that you feel like either you learned a lot or got a good return from? And what have been some investments that you would have preferred to have avoided, if there's any of those two?
Yeah. One I'm going to say that I wish I would have avoided early on is networking events. So I spent over 5,000 in networking events from, I went to really big conferences like Collision, like Web Summit, which by the way are great, but not when you're starting out. Because when you're starting out, it's very important, of course, to get customers. And what happens with a lot of these companies are you familiar with Collision and Web Summit?
Not that one specifically.
Okay, so it's a lot of the attendees are startups that are trying to raise funding. So what happens is they're great, but they're also looking to raise funding. So they're not ready to work with someone like myself. So I would say it's a great investment, but after you have 5 customers under your belt, then, great, start going to all these events, because eventually the people that you meet will eventually raise funds and they'll be ready to work with you, but it's not something that I would do early on. In terms of, the investments I've made now, I invest a lot in coaching. As a coach, I have to invest in coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So I recently bought this coaching course with Grant Cardone. So that's something that I'm going through. It's his mentorship program. There's also a few LinkedIn coaches that I work with. And then, what was I going to say? And in sales as well, even though I've been in sales for 7 years, there's always things that I can learn. So I invested in this coaching course with Chris Orlop. So
Mm-hmm.
if anyone's familiar, please go follow him on LinkedIn. He is so awesome. Chris Orlop. I learned a lot when it comes to sales, not just B2B, but B2C. Like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. His specialty is SaaS, but he's really good. For LinkedIn courses and LinkedIn coaching, Darren, that's someone that I've worked with as well. He's very good. But I'm always just looking to learn, whether it's coaching courses or even YouTube podcasts. I'm just investing a lot of time in that.
Cool. Interesting. So thank you. Thanks so much for sharing all that. And it must make sense also when it comes to investments that you would have avoided probably early on. It seems like going to these networking events is a long-term play rather
Yeah,
than a short one, which you might have needed at first.
yeah,
So in the future, you might potentially go back. So it's not really a bad investment per se, but it's just like an investment that you have a delayed ROI on.
yeah. No, definitely, yeah. And I wouldn't, not just like the big networking events. So these events their tickets are 1,000 to 1.5 to attend,
Mhm.
right? So they're
Yeah.
they're quite expensive. So networking is great, like if it's a complimentary event, but these big events, I would just hold off. Now, me being able to attend those events, I did get a sense for where the gap was, because I did speak with a lot of startups in all industries. So it was, as I said, it was great in the sense it gave me education as well on, how to position myself so I can attract other SMB companies. But I would definitely delay it. Yeah, definitely delay that.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolina. And my final question to you is, and again, for the coaches, but this could be a question that is about you as well. So for the coaches who are listening and are trying to scale their impact, try to make a change on people's life,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to these coaches when trying to scale their impact? And in a way, you're also trying to make an impact with the work that you're doing. So it could be like an advice you'd give to yourself. You don't have to think about who's going to receive the advice.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. When it comes to making an impact, you want to have a platform in order to kind of amplify or what you're trying to say. So it's really good to one, be on, obviously, have conversations with people like yourself, be on platforms, podcasts, social media. I would say pick one social media platform and go all in on that. If you're B2C, obviously, I would recommend something like Instagram or TikTok. If you're B2B, I would say start with LinkedIn, but just pick one platform and kind of expand after that. But be vocal, right? Because what I'm finding is a lot of founders I work with have great ideas, but they're not active on LinkedIn. They're not going into podcasts. They're not, how can I say, they're not putting their message out there. And you really have to put your message out there and basically like have a megaphone so everyone can hear it. So that's something that I advise. And where I am in my business now, I would say networking. So I know we talked about networking, not doing it early on, but where I am now, like I love to network. I'm doing that a lot. I'm going to be in Miami next month for a Grant Cardone event as well. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just being out there as well, not just on social media, but in person. So people know who you are and what you stand for.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline.
Yeah.
Thank you for the amazing advice.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming to our podcast today. For anyone who wants to connect with you or find you, they can find you in LinkedIn. They
Yes.
can look up Edy Carolina Arroyo, right?
Correct. Yes.
Cool. I
Awesome.
just want to make sure that I was pronouncing the first name correctly. So it
Yeah.
was cool. So yeah, they'll be able to find you there. I believe the website URL is ecpeasy.com. So E as echo, C as copy, and then
Yeah.
peasy.com. So I want to make sure that, yeah, it's not a Z, it's a C. Easypeasy.com. We'll link that to the description as well, so people don't have to think about that too much. But yeah, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciated our conversation.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.